Dr. Claire Brennan's hands were shaking. That was the first thing I noticed when I walked into the ultrasound room that Tuesday morning. Not the familiar hum of the machine warming up, not the framed pictures of babies on the wall, not even my own nervous excitement about seeing my little one wiggle on the screen again. I noticed her fingers trembling as she picked up my file from the counter. She was reading the top page, where my husband's name was printed in bold letters, Grant Mercer. The way she stared at those two words made my stomach tighten. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She swallowed hard like someone trying not to be sick. Then she did something I had never seen a doctor do before. She set down the ultrasound wand, reached over to the monitor, and switched it off. The room went silent except for the quiet whoosh of the air conditioning. "Mrs. Mercer," she said, and her voice cracked slightly. She cleared her throat and tried again. "I need to speak with you privately. Right now, please." My heart jumped into my throat. "Is something wrong with the baby?" The words came out small and terrified. I was 6 months pregnant and every appointment carried the weight of 1,000 fears. Genetic problems. Developmental delays. Something wrong with the heart, the brain, the spine. "Your baby is fine," Dr. Brennan said quickly. "Perfectly healthy. But you," she looked at me with eyes that held something I couldn't name. Anger? Fear? Pity? "You are not safe. You need to leave your husband today before you go home." I laughed. It was a short, sharp sound that didn't belong to me. The kind of laugh your brain makes when reality stops making sense. "What? Why, we're having a baby together. We're fine." "I don't understand." Dr. Brennan stood up and walked to the door. She locked it. Actually turned the bolt and locked us inside her examination room. That's when real fear crawled up my spine. Doctors don't lock doors for good news. "What I'm about to show you will change everything you know about your marriage," she said quietly. "But first, I need you to understand how you got here. Please sit down. My name is Daphne Wilson. I'm 32 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was and where my life was going. I come from what people politely call old money. My family, the Wilsons, have lived in Connecticut for 5 generations. My great-great-grandmother built the family estate in 1897. It's a beautiful Victorian house with wraparound porches, a garden that blooms from April to October, and enough rooms that I still haven't decided what to do with all of them. 5 years ago, my grandmother Eleanor died. She was 93, sharp as a knife until the end, and she left me everything. The house, the trust fund, about $2.3 million, carefully invested over decades. My grandmother used to tell me stories when I was little. She would sit in her rocking chair on the front porch, shelling peas into a blue bowl, and talk about the Wilson women. How we survived wars, depressions, terrible husbands, impossible choices. "We bend," she would say. "We don't break. Remember that, Daphne girl. When life tries to snap you in half, you bend." I never understood what she meant until now. I didn't live like a rich person. Not the way you see on TV. I drove a 10-year-old Subaru with a dent in the passenger door. I bought my coffee at the same diner every morning, chatting with Rita the waitress about her grandson's baseball games. The money was security, not personality. It was supposed to protect my future. It never occurred to me that it could also paint a target on my back. I met Grant Mercer 4 years ago at my family's annual charity gala. The Wilsons had hosted that event for 40 years. It raised money for literacy programs in underserved communities, something my grandmother cared about deeply. The ballroom would fill with Connecticut's social elite, all dressed in expensive gowns and tailored suits, drinking champagne and writing checks that made them feel noble. I hated those galas. Too many people asking invasive questions. Too many men who looked at me like a math problem to solve. Young woman plus inheritance equals opportunity. That night I was standing at the bar, trying to escape a particularly obnoxious investment banker who had asked about my financial situation within 90 seconds of shaking my hand. I was contemplating faking a medical emergency when a tall man with dark hair stepped up beside me. "What are you drinking?" he asked. "Regret," I said. With a twist of obligation, he laughed. A real laugh, not the polite chuckle people give at fancy events. "I'm having the same thing. This jazz band is terrible, isn't it? They're murdering what used to be a perfectly good song." I agreed. We talked for 20 minutes. He told me his name was Grant, that he was a financial advisor, that a colleague had invited him last minute. He said he had no idea who the Wilson family was. "Should I?" he asked, smiling. "Did I miss something important?" "Not really," I said. "Just some boring Connecticut history." Looking back now, that should have been my first warning sign. A financial advisor who shows up to a major charity event and doesn't research the host family. That's like a chef entering a cooking competition and saying, "Wait, we're cooking food today?" But I was so tired of men who led with my bank account. Here was someone asking about my favorite books, my work, whether I liked living in Connecticut. He paid attention when I talked. He remembered details. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I gave it to him. Grant was good. No, he was exceptional. We dated for a year. And during that time he built himself into exactly what I needed. He was attentive without being clingy. Thoughtful without being overwhelming. He remembered that I liked Earl Grey tea with honey, that I hated surprise parties, that my childhood dog was named Biscuit. He insisted on paying for dinners even though I could have bought the restaurant. I want to take care of you, he said. Not because you need it, but because I want to. He cried during romantic movies. He brought soup when I had the flu. He listened to my stories about work drama and asked follow-up questions the next day. He never once asked how much money I had. My mother didn't buy it. The first time Vivian Wilson met Grant, she smiled politely through dinner, waited until he left, then cornered me in the kitchen. That man's smile doesn't reach his eyes, she said. Mom, that's not fair. You barely know him. I know men like him. She was washing dishes with more force than necessary. Soap bubbles flying. Something is wrong, Daphne. I can feel it. You're being paranoid. I'm being a mother. We thought about Grant constantly after that. Every dinner turned into an interrogation. Every mention of his name made her face tighten. Eventually, I stopped bringing him around. Then I stopped calling her as much. Then we just stopped talking. For 2 years, my mother and I barely spoke. Birthday texts, holiday cards. That was it. All because I chose to believe a charming stranger over the woman who raised me. Grant proposed after a year of dating. He planned it perfectly, of course. A sunset picnic at my grandmother's estate, candles everywhere. My favorite flowers scattered across the grass. He got down on one knee and cried actual tears. I never thought I'd find someone like you, he said. Voice breaking. Someone who sees me for who I really am. Daphne Wilson, will you marry me? I said yes. How could I not? He was crying. He was vulnerable. He was perfect. We got married 6 months later in that same garden. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. My mother came but barely smiled in any photos. Grant's parents drove up from Maryland, beaming with pride about their son marrying into the Wilson family. The first year of marriage was good. Grant was still attentive, still loving. We talked about having kids someday. We planned a future, then we started trying to conceive. 1 year passed. Then another. Nothing happened. Finally, we went to a fertility specialist. The diagnosis hit like a truck: severe male factor infertility. Grant's sperm count was almost non-existent, and what little was there barely moved. Natural conception was basically impossible. Grant cried in the parking lot for 20 minutes. He apologized over and over like his body failing was some moral deficiency. We'll figure it out. I told him, holding his hand. That's what marriage is. We figure things out together. We decided on IVF with ICSI, a procedure where they inject a single sperm directly into an egg. It was our best chance. Grant insisted on researching clinics himself. He said he wanted to find the perfect one, that he wanted to handle the details so I wouldn't be stressed. At the time, I thought he was being supportive. Now I know he was being strategic. Our first IVF cycle failed. I was devastated. I stayed in bed for 3 days, crying into pillows, refusing to eat. Grant brought me tea and toast. He stroked my hair and whispered that we'd try again. We'll get our baby, he promised. I swear to you, Daphne, we'll have our family. The second cycle worked. 7 months before that ultrasound appointment, I peed on a stick and saw 2 pink lines. I screamed. I cried happy tears. Grant picked me up and spun me around the kitchen, laughing like a kid. That night, over celebratory takeout Chinese food, he casually mentioned updating my will. Now that we're a family, he said, stabbing at his low mean, you should probably update your estate planning. What if something happens during delivery? I'd need access to accounts for the baby. It seemed sweet, practical, a good husband thinking ahead. I updated my will that week. Around 4 months into my pregnancy, small cracks started appearing in the perfect husband facade. Grant's phone was suddenly always face down. He changed his password. He started taking calls in the other room, speaking in low voices I couldn't quite hear. He began working late, 3 nights a week, then 4. He'd come home close to midnight, smelling like expensive restaurants and making vague comments about client dinners. I found receipts, one from a steakhouse downtown, $280 for 2 people. Another from a hotel 40 minutes from our house. Client meeting, Grant said when I asked. The answer came too quick, too smooth. Networking event. Had to stay overnight because of the drive. When I pushed harder, his tone changed. Daphne, you're being paranoid. It's the hormones. He sighed like I was a difficult child. Your mother warned me you might get irrational during pregnancy. Don't turn into one of those wives. Somehow, I ended up apologizing. That's what he did best. He made me feel crazy for trusting my own instincts. At the same time, his questions about money got stranger. Add me to your trust. What if something happens to you during delivery? Let's get power of attorney. Every married couple does it. We should sell your grandmother's house. It's too big for us. I could invest the money properly. He wanted me to sell the home where 5 generations of Wilson women had lived. The house my grandmother left to me with tears in her eyes, making me promise to take care of it. When I refused gently, Grant went cold. He slept on the far edge of the bed. He gave me silent treatment for days. He barely touched me, claiming he didn't want to hurt the baby. It sounded caring. It felt like rejection. You're being needy, he'd say when I tried to talk about it. You're hormonal. You're making problems where there aren't any. He trained me, slowly and carefully, to doubt myself. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. and Grant wasn't in bed. I found him in the kitchen, hunched over his phone, speaking in a voice barely above a whisper. I stood in the dark hallway, hidden, and listened. It's almost time, he said. By spring, everything will be settled. Just keep your end quiet. Then he saw me. He hung up immediately. Work emergency, he said, shoving the phone in his pocket. Go back to sleep. I didn't ask who has a work emergency at 2 a.m. About something being settled by spring. I was too pregnant, too tired, and too desperate to believe my marriage was okay. My best friend Tara came over for lunch the next week. She watched me make excuse after excuse. He's stressed. The baby is a big change. He's adjusting. Tara set down her sandwich. Daff, listen to yourself. When's the last time you talked to your mom? I didn't answer. When's the last time Grant was genuinely happy to see you walk into a room? I couldn't answer that either. Trust your gut, Tara said. Something is wrong here, but I didn't trust my gut. I trusted Grant's tears, Grant's explanations, Grant's perfect mask. 1 week later, I had my routine ultrasound appointment. Grant didn't come with me. Client meeting, he said, kissing my forehead without looking at my eyes. Can't miss it. You'll be fine. My regular ob was on vacation, so I saw Dr. Claire Brennan instead. She was friendly at first, asked how I felt, whether the baby was moving, normal questions. She spread gel on my belly, cold and slippery. Then she opened my file. She looked at my husband's name, Grant Mercer. Her face changed completely. Color drained from her cheeks, her hands started trembling. She set the wand down, reached over, and turned off the monitor. Double quotes, Mrs. Mercer, she whispered, I need to speak with you privately. Right now, which is how I ended up sitting in her office, door locked, listening to her explain how my entire life was a lie. I know what your husband did, Dr. Brennan said. Her voice was steady now, but her hand still shook slightly. I have proof. She pulled a folder from her desk drawer. It was thick, stuffed with papers. My younger sister, Molly, works as a nurse at the fertility clinic you used 3 weeks ago. She came to me crying. She told me everything. When I saw your husband's name on your file today, I recognized it immediately. She opened the folder. Inside were photocopied documents, printed emails, handwritten notes. 7 months ago, around the time of your second IVF cycle, your husband approached my sister with what he called a special situation. He told her he needed to use donor sperm instead of his own, but that you didn't know about it. He claimed there was a genetic disease in his family he didn't want to pass on. My throat felt tight. That's not true. There's no genetic disease, I know, Dr. Brennan said quietly. He was lying. He offered Molly $30,000 to help him switch the samples. $30,000 for a nurse making $52,000 a year, drowning in student loans and credit card debt. That must have felt like salvation. She knew it was wrong, Dr. Brennan continued, but she was desperate. She said yes. The room felt like it was spinning. Molly helped switch your husband's sperm sample with sperm from a paid donor. An embryologist was involved too. Your husband paid him separately. Together, they made the switch without anyone else knowing. But the pregnancy worked, I whispered. We were so happy. That's when Molly's guilt started destroying her. She couldn't sleep. She lost 15 pounds in a month. She had panic attacks at work. 3 weeks ago, she finally broke down and told me everything. Dr. Brennan pulled out more papers, sample logs, donor ID numbers, bank transfers. She saved records, proof of the payments that can be traced back to your husband, proof of the switch, and she tracked down the donor himself. Why? The question came out broken. Why would Grant do this? Dr. Brennan's expression was pure pity. To frame you for cheating. Dr. Brennan laid it out like a timeline of my own destruction. Phase 1, bribe clinic staff and switch the sperm sample. Make sure the pregnancy happens with donor sperm instead of his own. Phase 2, play the devoted, loving husband throughout the pregnancy. Build the image of a perfect marriage. Phase 3, after the baby is born, have the clinic quietly alter their records. Make it look like your second IVF cycle failed. Make it look like you got pregnant naturally a few months later. Phase 4. Suggest a DNA test. Frame it as something sweet, a keepsake for the nursery. Proof daddy and baby are connected forever. Phase 5. When the DNA test shows he's not the biological father, and the medical records show you conceived naturally, accuse me of having an affair. Claim to be the devastated victim. You have a prenup, don't you? Dr. Brennan asked. Yes. My voice barely worked. My family insisted. It has an infidelity clause. What happens if someone cheats? They pay a penalty, $500,000. Plus they lose claim to certain assets. Plus the innocent spouse can sue for emotional damages. Dr. Brennan nodded like she'd been expecting that answer. Your husband was going to take $500,000 from you. He was going to take your grandmother's house. He was going to destroy your reputation and make everyone believe you're a cheating wife who got pregnant by another man, and when you were broken and ashamed, you wouldn't fight back. You'd probably give him even more just to make it stop. I couldn't breathe. The room was too small, too hot. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grip the arms of the chair. There's more, Dr. Brennan said quietly. She pulled out another set of documents. I did some research after Molly told me. Your husband has gambling debts, a lot of them. About $180,000 spread across online poker sites, sports betting, casino trips. He told me those were business conferences. He also embezzled money from his own clients to pay for this scheme. The bribes, the donor payment, it all came from stolen money. My perfect husband, my charming, thoughtful, crying at romantic movies husband. He was a con artist with gambling debts and a plan to frame me for adultery. The people he owes money to aren't banks, Dr. Brennan added. They're the kind of people who don't wait a few more months as an answer. He was desperate. You were his way out. She pushed the folder across the desk toward me. My sister is willing to testify. The embryologist is terrified and ready to cooperate. The donor, his name is Derek Sykes, is willing to give a statement. You have evidence. You have witnesses. But you need to act fast, because your husband thinks he's already won. I looked at the papers in front of me. They burned. They weighed 1,000 pounds. They were the truth I didn't want but couldn't ignore. I thought about my mother. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. She saw through him in 5 minutes. I defended him for years. I thought about my grandmother. Wilson, women don't break, we bend. I looked up at Dr. Brennan. He doesn't know I know, right? Only Molly told me. And I connected your name today. Good. I put my hand on my belly. My baby kicked. Innocent in all of this chaos, I need copies of everything, and I need to meet Molly directly. What are you going to do? I stood up, carefully, holding my pregnant belly. My husband thinks he's playing chess. He thinks he's 3 moves ahead. He thinks he already won. I looked at Dr. Brennan with something cold and clear settling in my chest. He's about to learn. I flipped the board. I drove home with a neutral face. Grant had installed security cameras around our house 2 years ago. For protection, he said. Now I wondered if it was surveillance. If he watched footage to track my moods, my visitors, my weaknesses. So I gave him nothing. Grant was in the kitchen when I walked in, chopping vegetables for dinner. He looked up and smiled. That smile that never reached his eyes. How was the appointment? He asked. Is our baby okay? Perfect, I said, smiling back. I hugged him, pressing my face into his shoulder so he couldn't see my expression. Everything is absolutely perfect. I handed him the ultrasound photo Dr. Brennan had printed before turning off the screen. Grant looked at it with what seemed like genuine joy. Look at that little face, he said softly. Our baby, not his baby. Not biologically. But he didn't know I knew that yet. Over dinner, I laughed at his jokes. I asked about his day. I apologized for being paranoid lately and blamed hormones. Using his own manipulation back at him. His shoulders relaxed. He poured himself wine. He thought he was still winning. That night, he slept like a baby. I lay awake until 3 a.m. planning. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Then I drove 2 hours to another city, checking my mirrors constantly to make sure I wasn't followed. I found a private investigator named Rosalind Weaver. She was an ex-police detective who went private after 25 years on the force. She had sharp gray eyes and a voice that cut through nonsense. I told her everything. She listened, took notes, and when I finished, she smiled like a shark who just spotted blood in the water. Your husband made mistakes, she said. Arrogant men always do. Give me 2 weeks. She delivered results in 10 days. Grant's gambling debts, confirmed. $180,000 across multiple platforms and private lenders. Some of those lenders weren't the patient type. The embezzlement, confirmed. About $53,000 missing from client accounts over 18 months. Siphoned in small transactions that his bosses hadn't noticed yet. And the affair. 8 months with his assistant. Hotel check-ins. Restaurant receipts. Weekend trips disguised as conferences. Rosalind had photos. Parking garage footage of them kissing. Hotel lobby time stamps. Dinner reservations for 2 at romantic restaurants on nights Grant told me he was working late. His assistant. Of course it was his assistant. It was so predictable it almost felt insulting. There's one more thing, Rosalind said. Your husband tried this before. She slid another folder across her desk, 5 years ago. He dated a woman named Caroline Ashford in Boston. Wealthy family, trust fund. They were together about 8 months. She discovered financial irregularities in a joint account he'd convinced her to open. She ended the relationship but didn't press charges because she was embarrassed. Is she willing to talk now? I already called her. She'll provide a written statement. She said she's been waiting for someone to finally catch him. I sat in that office, looking at the evidence of my husband's other life, and felt something cold and clear settle into my bones. He thought I was an easy target, soft, naive, rich, and sheltered and stupid. He had no idea who he married. I met Molly Brennan 3 days later at a coffee shop an hour outside town. She looked terrible, thin and pale with dark circles under her eyes. The moment she saw me, she started crying. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I knew it was wrong. I knew I shouldn't have. Stop, I said. I sat down across from her. I need one thing from you. Are you willing to testify officially? Under oath? With your name attached? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, I already told my sister I would. I'll tell the police everything. I looked at her for a long moment. She did something terrible. She took money to help hurt me. But Grant was the architect of this. He found her weakness and exploited it. Don't be scared anymore, I told her. You're not the villain in this story. He is, the embryologist, once he learned Molly saved records and planned to testify. Developed a sudden conscience. Or maybe just fear of prison. He agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges. Then came the hardest call. I sat in my car in an empty parking lot, phone in hand, for 20 minutes before I could make myself dial. The phone rang twice. Daphne? My mother's voice was careful, like she was afraid to hope. Mom, I said. My voice cracked. You were right. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I expected anger. I expected I told you so. I deserved it. Instead, she said, what do you need, sweetheart? No gloating. No lecture. Just immediate, unconditional support. That broke me more than anything Grant had done. My mother was a retired attorney. Estate law for 30 years. Within 48 hours, she connected me with 2 people, an excellent divorce lawyer and a prosecutor, who specialized in fraud cases. My divorce lawyer was named Sandra Kowalski. She was 5'2" with silver hair and reading glasses on a chain. She looked like someone's sweet grandmother. She was a shark in a cardigan. Sandra reviewed everything. Clinic records, witness statements, PI findings, affair evidence, embezzlement proof. When she finished reading, she looked up at me and smiled. Your husband is facing fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement charges, she said. And your prenup clause works in your favor now because he's the one who's been unfaithful. He planned to use it against you, but it's about to cut him instead. Sandra coordinated with the prosecutor. They moved carefully, quietly. Molly gave a sworn statement to police. The embryologist cooperated. Grant's firm was quietly alerted and began an internal investigation. They froze his access to client accounts. A judge reviewed the evidence and found probable cause. An arrest warrant was issued. I held that information like a lit match in my hand. And I waited for the perfect moment to let it burn. 6 weeks later, 8 months pregnant, I suggested throwing a baby celebration at my grandmother's estate. A garden party, I said to Grant over breakfast. Both families, close friends. Something beautiful before the baby comes. Grant's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. He loved an audience. He loved playing the devoted husband role for a crowd. That's a wonderful idea, he said, kissing my forehead. Let me help you plan. No, I said gently. You work so hard. Let me handle it. You just show up and enjoy yourself. He had no idea my planning included police officers waiting in the guest house, my lawyer stationed near the bar, Derek Sykes ready to speak, and folders of evidence organized like courtroom exhibits. The party was on a Saturday in late April. Perfect weather. The gardens were in full bloom. Roses and hydrangeas and lavender layered in colors my grandmother had planted over decades. White tents, string quartet, champagne, about 50 guests in their spring best. Grant's parents drove up from Maryland, beaming with pride about their son and the upcoming baby. My mother stood by the dessert table, calm and watchful as a cat. Grant worked the crowd like a politician, charming, attentive. His hand always on my belly for photos. The devoted husband. The excited father --B. He was so good at pretending to be human. Around 3 o'clock. Grant did exactly what I knew he would. He brought up the DNA test idea loudly with his arm around my waist. So everyone could hear, "Honey," he said, voice carrying across the lawn. "We should do one of those DNA test kits. We can frame the results for the nursery. Proof that daddy and baby are connected forever. Isn't that special?" People smiled. Someone said, "How sweet." His mother dabbed at her eyes. I pretended to hesitate. "I don't know. That seems like a lot of trouble." "Come on," Grant said, practically vibrating with excitement. "We can even open the results here right now. Make it part of the celebration. What do you all think?" The crowd murmured approval. Grant could taste victory. He thought the trap was about to spring shut. Instead, I walked to the small platform by the fountain, the place where we'd planned to do toast later. I picked up the microphone. Grant smiled up at me, already rehearsing his devastated, betrayed husband face for when the DNA results came back wrong. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice was steady, clear. "This party is about celebration, family, and truth. My husband said he wanted to reveal something special today, so I'm going to help him do exactly that." Grant's smile flickered. Just slightly. I pulled out a folder. 3 months ago, I said, I learned something about my husband that changed everything. Grant is right. Today should be about truth. The color started draining from his face. Grant and I struggled with fertility. His medical diagnosis meant natural conception was impossible. So we did IVF at a clinic he carefully selected. These are the clinic records. The original records. Before anyone could alter them, the word original landed like a stone. Grant's mouth opened, then closed. These records show that my husband bribed clinic employees to switch his sperm sample with donor sperm. He paid $30,000 to a nurse named Molly Brennan. He paid the embryologist. And he paid $15,000 to a man named Derek Sykes. I gestured to the side of the tent. Derek stepped forward. A nervous young man with honest eyes. The crowd gasped. Someone dropped a champagne flute. It shattered on the stone path. "He did this without my knowledge or consent," I continued. "His plan was to wait until after the baby was born, then demand a DNA test. When the test showed he wasn't the father, he would accuse me of cheating. Our prenup has an infidelity clause. I would owe him $500,000. I would lose my rights to this estate. He would take everything and destroy my reputation in the process." Grant tried to speak. "Daphne, this is insane. You're confused. It's the hormones." "I'm not finished," I said. My voice was ice. "In addition, my husband embezzled money from his clients to fund this scheme. His firm has been notified and is currently investigating. He also has $180,000 in gambling debts. And for the past 8 months, he's been having an affair with his assistant." I held up photos. Nothing explicit. Just enough. Hotel entrances. Dinner dates. Intimate moments captured by a professional investigator. Grant's mother made a sound like she'd been punched. His father stared at the ground. "This wasn't his first attempt," I added. 5 years ago, he tried the same scheme with a woman named Caroline Ashford. She'll be providing a statement to authorities. Grant's champagne glass continued. 343 amp slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the stone path, spraying glass and bubbles across expensive shoes. "She's lying," he stammered. He looked around wildly at the crowd. "She's mentally unstable. Then Molly Brennan stepped forward. Pale and shaking but determined. "I'm the nurse he bribed," she said. Her voice was quiet but everyone heard. "I have documentation." I gave a statement to police. Derek Sykes spoke next. "He paid me $15,000 cash and said it was a private arrangement. I didn't know it was fraud. When I found out, I agreed to testify." 2 police officers walked out from the guest house. They crossed the lawn calmly, professionally. Grant Mercer, one said, "You're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent." The handcuffs clicked shut. Right there, in front of his parents, his friends, his carefully constructed audience, Grant's mother sobbed. His father wouldn't look at him. As they led him away, Grant tried one last manipulation. "Daphne, please," he begged. His voice broke. "We can fix this. I love you. Think about our baby, please." I looked at him, really looked, and felt nothing but clarity. "You're right," I said. "I did think about our baby. That's exactly why you're leaving with them." They put him in the police car and drove away. Down the gravel path, past the gardens my grandmother planted, through the iron gates he'd wanted so desperately to own. My mother came to my side and put her arm around me. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. "Your grandmother would be too." For the first time in months, I took a full breath. Grant was denied bail. "Flight risk," the judge said. The gambling creditors he owed money to got very interested once the arrest became public. His assistant resigned the next morning and disappeared. Smart woman. His firm finished their internal investigation within 2 weeks. $53,000 confirmed missing from client accounts. They filed additional charges and cooperated fully with the prosecution. Caroline Ashford came forward publicly. She gave interviews. She wasn't embarrassed anymore. She was angry and wanted other women to know what to watch for. The divorce moved fast. The prenup clause, the one Grant planned to weaponize against me, now cut the other direction. He was the unfaithful spouse. His fraud made everything worse. He had nothing real to give anyway. Every asset was borrowed or stolen. In the criminal case, the evidence was overwhelming. Molly testified. The embryologist cooperated for reduced charges. Derek gave his statement. The paper trail was undeniable. Grant eventually took a plea deal. He's serving 7 years for fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. His lawyer tried to get him less time, but the judge wasn't sympathetic. You didn't just commit financial crimes, the judge said at sentencing. You tried to destroy a woman's life and reputation. You tried to weaponize her own child against her. 7 years is merciful compared to what you deserve. My baby was born 3 months after Grant's arrest. Healthy and perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes. A face that looked nothing like Grant and everything like the beginning of something good. Some people asked if I would contact Derek again. If I'd tell my child about him someday. I thought about it. Derek was a young man who made a bad choice because he needed money. He didn't know it was fraud. He cooperated fully once he learned the truth. But he wasn't ready to be a father, and he didn't want to be. I didn't need him to be. My child has me. Has my mother. Has the Wilson legacy. Has love, stability, safety, and truth. That's enough. I learned something important through all of this. Family isn't just DNA. Family is who shows up. Who stays. Who chooses you, especially when it's hard. My mother chose me even after I hurt her. She never said I told you so, not once. When I finally asked her why, she smiled. Because watching you take down that man was more satisfying than any 4 words could ever be. One morning, weeks after everything was settled, I sat in my grandmother's kitchen. Sunlight poured across the wooden table. I made chamomile tea the way she taught me, with honey and a twist of lemon outside. The gardens were blooming. Roses, hydrangeas, lavender. Layers of color built over generations of Wilson women who bent but never broke. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, lunch tomorrow? I smiled and typed back, always. Grant Mercer tried to take everything, my money, my peace, my name, my future. All he actually did was show me my strength. My grandmother used to say, Wilson women don't break. We bend, we adapt. We survive. And when someone tries to burn us down, we rise from the ashes and build something better. Grant thought he married an easy target. A rich girl who'd crumble under shame and fear. He married a Wilson. And now he has 7 years in a prison cell to think about that mistake. I look at my baby sleeping in the morning sun, innocent and perfect, and I know this. I will teach this child about truth, about strength, about standing up when someone tries to silence you, about listening to the people who truly love you, even when it's hard. I will teach this child that family is more than blood, that trust is earned, that charm without substance is just manipulation with a smile, and someday, when this child is old enough to understand, I will tell them the whole story, not to create fear, but to create wisdom. I go outside to my grandmother's garden and plant a new rose bush. I name it Eleanor. I dig the hole with my bare hands, feeling the soil under my nails. Cool and alive. It's my way of marking the line between old pain and new life. A promise that this home will never be a hunting ground again. It will be a sanctuary. And my child will grow up knowing that Wilson women don't break, we bend. And when someone tries to snap us in half, we rise, we heal, and we bloom.